Your menstrual cycle is more than just a period. Hi family, welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, I'll be answering some of the most commonly asked questions when it comes to the menstrual cycle and of course periods. So if you are a menstruating woman, then this video is definitely for you. If you're new on here, my name is Nana. I'm a pharmacist and I create content on women's health, and of course medication. If you haven't already subscribed, why don't you hit that subscribe button now and let's become family. Before I go on to answer some of the most commonly asked questions, let's talk about why it's important to know and understand your menstrual cycle. So the menstrual cycle can tell you a lot about your overall health, especially when it comes to gynecological issues. Menstrual cycle can give you an indication of when you are ovulating. It can also help you if you're trying to conceive or trying to avoid pregnancy. So let's move on and answer some of these questions when it comes to our cycle. Number one is, what is the menstrual cycle? So the menstrual cycle is natural processes that occurs in the female reproductive system. The cycle is controlled by female hormones that causes regular bleeding and allow pregnancy to occur. So you could say that the menstrual cycle's main role is to prepare our body for pregnancy. Question 2 is, when is the first day of your cycle? So the first day of your menstrual cycle is the day that you have your period. And then of course you go through the menstrual cycle up onto the next day of your next period. So this is when your body is resetting itself for another menstruation phase. Menstrual cycle length can vary between individuals, especially if you have conditions such as PCOS, endometriosis, thyroid hormones, as these things can actually affect your menstrual cycle length. The typical average menstrual cycle length is known to be 28 days. However, a cycle length can last from 21 days to 35 days. So if you're someone that have a cycle outside of this range, so outside of 21 or 35 days, then I advise you to speak to your healthcare provider. They might need to investigate a bit more and understand why, or know why your menstrual cycle is outside of this range. Certain medications can also affect menstrual cycle. And did you know stress can also affect your menstrual cycle length? Number 3 is, which hormones are involved in the menstrual cycle? There are female hormones that are involved in the menstrual cycle. So the most common ones are the follicle stimulating hormone, also known as FSH, luteinizing hormone, which is also known as the LH. You might also be familiar with estrogen and progesterone. So estrogen and progesterone are found in the ovaries, whereas the FSH and the LH are found in the pituitary gland. So with these hormones and many other hormones, these all work together to prep the body for pregnancy. So question 4 is, when does ovulation occur? So before we talk about when this happens, let's talk about what is ovulation. So ovulation is the release of an egg from the ovaries. When 2 or more eggs are released, this is known as multiple pregnancies. So this is when you tend to see your twins, triplets, quadruplets, etc. So typically women tend to release an egg each month. When does ovulation occur? So ovulation normally occurs between day 10 to 16 of your menstrual cycle. So many women may think they ovulate on day 14 of their cycle. This could be false because, as I said earlier, menstrual cycle length varies between each woman. So if you're someone that has a cycle length of 27 days, then you're likely to ovulate day 13 of your menstrual cycle. If you're someone that has the 28 days, then you're likely to ovulate day 14 of your cycle. Sometimes ovulation does not happen at all. If you're someone that do not ovulate, then you might have certain conditions. This will need to be investigated. If you are ovulating, the egg that is released can last up to 24 hours. Remember, sperms can last up to 5 days in their body. So if you're someone that's trying to conceive, then it's important to know when you are likely to ovulate in order to improve your chances of conceiving. Question 5 is, how can I tell, or how can you tell if you're ovulating? Well, there are some physical signs, some body changes that occur if you're ovulating. Again, if you do not want to rely on these signs, you can buy some ovulating kits from the pharmacy. This will normally measure the hormone levels and then we'll be able to tell you whether you are ovulating or not. If you want to rely on the body changes, some people tend to have a discharge. So this discharge is a clear, stretchy discharge that tends to occur. This is a sign that you are ovulating. Not everybody experiences this discharge, but if you do, then you know that you are ovulating. Again, you can't rely on body temperature, so you can measure your basal body temperature. So this brings me on to question 6. What is the difference between ovulation and fertile days? So I've mentioned what an ovulation is. Now let's talk about what is fertile days. So fertile days are the days leading up to your ovulation days. If you're someone that's trying to conceive, this increases your chance of conceiving. So it's important to know your fertile days. Fertile days can be 5 days leading up to your ovulation day. Question 7 is what happens if the egg is not fertilized? So if the egg is not fertilized, it dissolves and the uterine lining is shed during a period. So this brings us to question 8. What happens during a period? If the egg that is released is not fertilized, then of course we go through the menstrual phase or the menstruation phase. During this phase, there's quite a lot that happens. So there is a hormonal changes, there's a hormonal reset, there is blood flow, and of course there are the symptoms of cramping and pain. This lining that is shed exits the body through the vagina as a menstrual blood along with mucus and tissues. When the lining is being shed, some people can experience cramps, pains. This is when the uterus is contracting in order to expel the thickened lining. A typical period can last between 3 to 7 days. If your period is less than 3 days or more than 7 days, then again it's worth speaking to your healthcare provider. A typical woman loses between 30 to 50 ml of blood per cycle. Again, if it's someone that is changing their period pads, their tampon every 1 hour during their period, then you are experiencing heavy bleeding. If you're passing large clots, again it's important to speak to a healthcare provider. Question 9 is how do you track your menstrual cycle? So tracking your menstrual cycle is important. I've already explained to you why it's important to know and understand your menstrual cycle. You can track your menstrual cycle using the calendar method, or you can also download some apps that are available. So the Flow app can help you track your menstrual cycle. There are other different apps out there. If you want to use the calendar method, it's also important to know the length of your cycle. This will help you calculate or help you track your menstrual cycle. Question 10 is what are the phases of the menstrual cycle? We have the menstrual phase, the follicular phase, the ovulation phase, and the luteal phase. If you want to know more about these phases and this how you can manage your symptoms during these stages of the phases, comment menstrual cycle down below and I shall do a video on the stages or the phases of the menstrual cycle. Alright guys, I shall end this video here. If you really enjoyed this video, why don't you give it a thumbs up? If you haven't subscribed, why don't you hit that subscribe button now and let's become friends. I shall see you all in my next video. Take care. Bye.